Before we begin, would you please take a moment to silence your phones and any other electronic devices? I just want to let you know that the League has arranged for tonight's forum to be recorded and made available through a multiple of outlets for replay. But for those choosing to record, we ask that you follow League guidelines. In order to ensure the unhampered viewing by our audience, any videography must be done in a way that does not impair the view of your neighbor. No phones should be held up above your head in front of your neighbor. More importantly, in keeping with the League's commitment to fairness and nonpartisanship, we strongly request that the content of tonight's proceedings not be manipulated in any way as to create a false or misleading impression of any candidate. And now we begin. So I want to wish you a good evening. I'm Monica Gray. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of New Rochelle. I want to welcome our audience here in the Ossie Davis Auditorium of the New Rochelle Public Library, as well as those of you viewing us on live streaming or recorded replay. Tonight's very full and important proceedings are the result of the yeoman's job done by our amazing Voter Services co-chairs, Joan Alexander and Amy Weiser, who've been assisted so well by John Hessler. I want to thank them and our timekeeper, Richard Gray, as well as all those who submitted thoughtful questions. Our thanks also go to this evening's moderator, Walter Schwartz. Mr. Schwartz is a former Ardsley Village Justice who served for 36 years. That's 9 elections. He also served as an elected village trustee for 8 years. Walter is a former member of the Attorney Grievance Committee of the 9th Judicial District. He's a member of the Rivertowns League of Women Voters and now resides in White Plains. It's our pleasure and honor to have Mr. Schwartz as our moderator. Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Monica. Up until now, I've tried to avoid gray areas, but I think I'm in one right now. Monica Gray, I'm referring to. Okay. I guess I'm going to have to explain my jokes. I've been accused of having a rather dry sense of humor, and it will be dry. No, it won't be dry. So from time to time, I'm going to be referring to my trusty bottle of water, beginning right now. Because although I don't have a lot to say, I have a lot to ask. I have questions to ask. I have no personal opinion. I don't know any of the candidates. We met when we drew lots. I got the smallest one, as you can see, so I got the job over here. But the people were chosen. We chose them according to the color of their shoes, and I was very fortunate, but I'm not going to do that for the school board debate because there are more candidates and consequently we'll run out of shoe colors. But here I am, and I'm very pleased to be here. It's my honor and pleasure to assist you here tonight. Please understand my role. It is merely to facilitate a process that is between you, the voters, and you, the candidates. You, the voters, are here in this room or watching at home to listen to the candidates speak about significant issues affecting the New Rochelle Library and to help decide upon your choice of candidates as well as the library budget next Tuesday, May 15, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. when the polls will be open. It is essential that we allow each of the candidates the respect, opportunity, and attention to make the best use of their time. For that reason, plus the fact that I left my applause meter at home, we ask you to refrain from applause during the program unless I tell you it is appropriate, in which event I will join you, I promise, in saluting all the candidates for taking on a difficult and time-consuming task. We will be hearing from candidates for 4, F-O-U-R, library board seats. As you see, there are 5 candidates. The 2 candidates receiving the most votes will receive full 5-year terms. The next 2 will be elected to fill the 2 unexpired 1-year terms on the 7-person New Rochelle Library Board. The ground rules for the event are as follows. First, each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for an opening statement, in the order for which, as I said, lots have already been drawn, and we will proceed to my right, your left, of the candidates one by one. As we do, I'm not going to repeat their names. I'm going to introduce each of them now, and they can repeat their names as they go along, but not too often, please. Following all opening statements, we will have questions. Some of the questions have been submitted by the league, some by the general public here in New Rochelle, and I will read the questions. They were given to me just a few minutes ago. I read them over quickly. I have no part in making any of the questions. Responses to the questions will be limited to 60 seconds. So again, opening, 90 seconds. Responses to questions, 60 seconds for each candidate. The order will rotate. In other words, for my first question, we'll begin with the person to my right. For my second question, we'll begin with the second person on my right, and so on and so forth as we loop around the room, or at least the front of the room. And after we finish the question stage or phase, we will go on to closing statements. Candidates will have 60 seconds for a closing statement in the reverse order of the opening. So the opening will proceed to my right and down the row. The closing statements will proceed from the end, the far right, toward my direction. As moderator, I reserve the right to allow additional rebuttal if, in my opinion, rebuttal is warranted by the content of a closing statement. This evening's timekeeper, who's seated in the first row, will indicate to the candidates and to me 30 seconds remaining and stop. So he has 2 cards. Would you show them the cards, please? Here it says 30 seconds and stop when time is up, at which point you will hear me say something like this: thank you, that's it, next candidate. I'll let you finish the sentence, but if the sentence gets like lawyerly, we have a habit of that, as you know, then I'll know there's an end to it, and you will too. Now we're ready to proceed, and in a moment I'm going to introduce the candidates for New Rochelle Library Board in order of their seating. Please hold all applause until I say otherwise. To the candidates and the audience, I thank you in advance for your cooperation in following the rules of the League of Women Voters, which they have laid out. We look forward to a healthy discussion of these issues. So by lot, the names of the candidates, and I'm going to introduce them and just give a little wave, a little one, please. So here they are, beginning with Whitney Barrett, Sarah Cullen Langlois, Daniel Bonet, Corey Galloway, and Quentin Jacobs. Thank you all. And now we are ready to proceed. So, 90 seconds, opening statements, please.
Hello. My name is Whitney Barrett. I am a candidate for the New Rochelle Public Library Board of Trustees. I moved to New Rochelle 5 years ago. I bought a husband with my house. It was great. The house and I are doing well. Husband needs a little bit of repair. No, just kidding. I love him. I'm wasting my time. We moved here 5 years ago. We fell in love with New Rochelle. My kids go to Webster. The library was an anchor for us. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I am a nonprofit professional. I currently work as an executive director for a 40-year-old nonprofit organization in Jamaica, Queens. Its mission is really around community revitalization and support for small businesses, placemaking, beautification, et cetera. Prior to that, I was recruited to work for the Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts. I was their senior planner for logistics and approvals and focused on the David Geffen Hall project, which was undergoing redevelopment. While there, I worked with city, state, and federal agencies on their design and approvals process. Prior to that, I was the executive director for the Old Seaport Alliance, working to help the small businesses who were decimated post Hurricane Sandy. I have a long history before that too, but I think I'm going to get the red stop sign shortly. Happy to talk about my professional background anytime. Really excited to be here and continue serving on the library board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, good evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting us this evening. My name is Sarah Cullen Langlois. I grew up in New Rochelle, and I now live here with my husband and 2 young daughters. I grew up attending this library. I got my first library card here, and I continue the tradition of bringing my kids to the children's programs that we have here. I really feel strongly about this institution. I feel the nostalgia that I've heard expressed from so many of you recently about the importance of this building and this library. And I really want to serve on the library board. I'm a member of the Junior League of Westchester on the Sound. It's a nonprofit organization, but I think that right now I would be better suited to serve my immediate community, and I hope that you will consider voting for me on May 15th.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this today. My name is Daniel Bonet, and I am currently on the Library Board of Trustees. I'm born and raised here in this beautiful city of New Rochelle. Grew up on 1 Harrison Street and currently live at 5 Union Street. I grew up in and out of the library. My mother, father attended here many opportunities, from ESL classes to computer classes. My father was able to find his job here, he was placed at Westchester Reformed Temple by the community members that were part of here. I currently am the Deputy Executive Director of a 75-year-old not-for-profit organization worth $17 million. I currently oversee all youth and young adult programs in the community of New Rochelle and Mount Vernon. I'm also a executive member in the MBK Leadership Committee for our youth and young adults. Overall, my experience here is of value to the Library Board of Trustees. I hope that you will consider me and open to dialogue with everyone here in the room to remain on the library board. I thank you for all of you for coming, and look forward to speaking to all of you.
Thank you.
Name is Corey Galloway. I'm a resident of New Rochelle since 2001, 17 years. Currently live in the Thomas Paine area. I have 3 boys and 1 daughter, but it's a mixed marriage. So we've been enjoying life here to the past 17 years. I have 2 children in New Rochelle High School and 1 child at Ward, going over to Leonard. By way of background, the reason I wanted to serve is professionally, I'm a developer. I develop affordable housing. I'm currently working with the City of New York, Goldman Sachs, CPC, and HPD. The philosophy that my company has is that you should have triple bottom line returns. So it should be green, it should be beneficial to the community, and should also be profitable. I think we've been doing this for over 10 years. By way of background, undergrad studied economics. I got my MBA and also graduated from Harvard Business School. And currently I feel like I have the ability, and I've done the work during my day job of knowing how to evolve New Rochelle. I've advised many not-for-profit clients and usually advise them on not selling their property, but figuring out how to get the most value of it. But I think those things happen over time. Thank you, and look forward to hearing any questions.
Thanks very much for having this event. Thanks for attending, and thanks for watching. My name is Quentin Jacobs. I am the senior member of the Board of Trustees. I've been on for 10 years. I'm very glad to be doing this. The materials of the New Rochelle Public Library have been in my life since I was a child, because even though I was brought up in Larchmont, my father had his practice in the building across from the old library, and I My parents both brought home books from here all the time. When the opportunity came 10 years ago to run for trustee, I said this was meant to be. I've lived in New Rochelle since 1990 with my lovely wife, Mary Jo, and we've raised 4 children here. I love libraries, I always have, and I jumped at the opportunity, as I said. I have worked in the fields of historic preservation. I'm now a medical coder at the Visiting Nurses Society of Services of Westchester. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania and a graduate degree from Columbia University in historic preservation. I've been your trustee for 10 years. I hope to do it some more. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Thank all of you. Now we'll proceed to the next round, which is the questions. I'll read the questions. The answers will be in approximately 60 seconds before the timekeeper indicates stop. And we'll begin with seat number 2. You've already answered the first question. The first question I'm just going to read, but it won't be the one that I'll ask you to answer because you've answered, and all of you have answered it so well. And it is, what are your unique qualifications for the library board? Okay, so much for that. Thank you. So now, we come to this question, and beginning with number 2. What should be the main mission of the New Rochelle Public Library?
I think the main mission of the library should be to respond to what the community needs. I think in a time when technology is changing so rapidly that the library really needs to remain relevant, and that is challenging. I think that the director of the library, Tom Giaffino, has done such a great job of keeping everything relevant, keeping the materials up to date, and really responding to the community needs. Recently, there's been high attendance at the meetings in response to the agreement with RXR, and so that's something that's very pressing right now, and the community is very concerned, so it's very important right now for the Board of Trustees to listen to the community. Thank you.
Next.
Personally, I think that the mission of the library should be to continue to be the gem of our community, providing the social service programs that they currently offer to all of our constituents in this community. I, for one, am a product of all the services that the library has offered, and I continue to connect families, youth, children, individuals that are undocumented, individuals that do not speak English, to come to the library and get the resources that they need. But most importantly, I think the vision is to preserve the library that we have and to continue to work as a bridge to other programs and social services opportunities that are here in the community. As Sarah alluded, technology and the changes in our community are very, very important. We need to make sure that we are bridging and closing the gap for our children, both in education and for our families to thrive and work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on, I just want to mention something, and maybe I was remiss, but it just occurred to me. Especially with the number of candidates, by the time we get to the last one, whoever you may be, you may forget what the question was. Because the questions aren't always, and I'm not saying anything about anybody here at all, casting any aspersions, not at all. But you might forget what the question is. So if any of you want me to repeat the question now or in the future, please ask me to do so, and I'll certainly do that. So the question I'm going to repeat right now, it's a fairly straightforward question, and we'll go on to number 3 here, which is really number 4 to my right. What should be the main mission of the New Rochelle Public Library?
The main mission for the New Rochelle Public Library should be maintaining its values as far as the history that exists currently at the library, which means preserving all of the foundation that it was built on, preserving the way we're reaching out to the community, offering more equality to the programs. And I also believe that one of the main missions of the library should be looking out to what's happening in the rest of the world, and how can we bring those resources to New Rochelle. As my background from being in the investment and real estate space, there are a lot of things that do happen out in the world, and those resources should be brought to bear at the library.
Thank you. Next.
The New Rochelle Public Library is the paramount source for information, and it's a nexus for all the cultural community, the lively arts, the studio arts. It even promotes culture beyond its borders with its Museum Pass program. And we can't lose sight of its original purpose, informational, but we do adapt culturally and technologically the changing times to maintain its importance, its paramount importance as the wellspring of the community and of its cultural life.
Yes.
I'm not sure how many people have read the library's wonderful strategic plan, but it really outlines a map for ensuring that we continue to serve the people of New Rochelle, that we continue with the wonderful programming that we have in place and expand and grow it to meet the needs of how things are changing in our culture and our community, to meet the needs of various age groups. We have everything from babies and children's programming to teens. We have homework help. We have employment services. We have computers that not everyone has access to, and Wi-Fi and technology. I think that our library needs to continue to be a gateway to opportunity for people here, and a home base and a resource and beacon as it has been.
Thank you. Next question. Shall we call this 2 or 3? In any event, here it is. And so we'll begin with the third speaker, Mr. Bonet, in a moment. So the question is, will you assure that all transactions between the library board and RXR Development Company and its contractors will be made public in a complete, comprehensive, and timely manner?
So the short version of to answer that is yes, absolutely. Most importantly, in the time and era that we are now in our city, where members of the community, including myself, have a lot of questions from the school to the library. Transparency is key, and providing that information to our community is super, super important. Now, the most important aspect of that is making sure that as a trustee and the board, that we are making every effort in every possible way to get that information out. It's not just about putting it on the website. It's not about, well, we sent out mailers. It's really also to using our social media, also speaking to members of the community, to the neighborhood associations, to really make sure that we are communicating effectively to the members of this community, so they know and are up to date with everything that's happening, because their voice is the most important thing for the change in our library.
Thank you.
Repeat the question again.
Certainly. Will you assure that all transactions between the library board and RXR Development Company and its contractors will be made public in a complete, comprehensive, and timely manner?
So the short answer to that is yes. I think just in order to be an effective business owner or business person, you have to have high ethics and integrity. So in any transaction I've ever done, it's very much a glass pipeline. You can trace back from my junior high school to today online. I'm extremely a glass pipeline person. So you can go to all my alumni schools. I operate in from the position of everything should be a glass pipeline. There shouldn't be anything that's left to question. I think sharing information is important, and I think getting the information in a timely manner and accurately is important, because I think it's one of the things that happen is people are getting bits of information, and I think that information needs to come directly from the source and be accurate.
Thank you.
My answer, of course, would also be yes. Maybe that should be my long answer, too. But yes, you can. We're trying to lay out whatever happens between us and any developer as clearly as possible, and as soon as it happens. And if the various media we use isn't quick enough for you, you can always call me. I'll talk to you about it.
Thank you.
I yes is the answer to that question. We are your voice. We are the representatives of the people of New Rochelle on behalf of, we're the conduit between the users of the library and all that occurs as part of the programming and everything else, and including the operations and governance here. Transparency is essential, and what is also essential is the trust you place in us as your elected representatives. So I don't see how anyone could possibly say no to that, just in general. But of course, I mean, we are here in a public capacity, and you need to know that we believe strongly. I mean, I can speak only for myself. I believe extremely strongly in community involvement every step of the way when it comes to an incredibly important public asset like the library.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think that historically, the Board of Trustees has been very transparent. I think the current climate with the school board and a lot of development right now has a lot of residents very uneasy. But I do think that the Board of Trustees has a great responsibility. They have a fiduciary duty to see what RXR has to say. It is a big responsibility to determine the future of the library, but absolutely transparency is key, and I would definitely be as transparent as possible.
Thank you. I mean no disrespect, but you're not giving the timekeeper any kind of a workout. Because you're all answering directly to the question and within the time frame, and we all appreciate it, including the audience. Thank you. So, here's the next question, and that is for, I've got a little scorecard here. So we're now up to chair number 4.
Yep.
That's you, Mr. Galloway, to take the next question first, which is, how do you think the library fits into the downtown development plans?
That's a good question. So I don't think the library was taken into consideration during the downtown plans, at least the overall transaction that I researched and read on with RXR. I think that from what I've read, anyways, because I'm not on the board, but the public information that's out there, I didn't see the library have a vote on what would happen around the library proper. But as far as the library is concerned, I think it is the center of the city. I think it is the foundation of what a lot of people will circulate around, which is why I think it's valuable to keep it here. So I don't think the library had or was included in the development plans around New Rochelle, which, in my opinion, I think is quite unfortunate, because I think every voice, adds value. So.
Okay, thank you.
It's interesting how the library does fit into the development plans, whether or not it was taken into account. In 1979, when they renovated this building, there's a sort of a master plan and envisioned a walkway sort of between here and what was then the mall. So it's part of a vision of centrality of purpose for New Rochelle. And it's sort of becoming that with the skyscrapers rising up around it, in between the train station and where those people will be living. Well, presumably will be a lot of them using that train station. And its centrality is partly accidental and partly planned, and it's an important thing to consider in any RXR scheme or any developer's scheme, how valuable our site is.
Next.
I'm going to answer this question in 2 different ways. I think its role in what's happening downtown. I actually think the library should be a resource for people to come and understand what's happening here. I think there should be information about that readily available. The library is a different and independent entity from what's happening with the city. So I think it's important to kind of probably get to what you meant by the question, which is how does this site fit into the larger overall master plan? I don't think that there's any better place for the library than this location. It's accessible from the train and from all of the residential units around here. I think that's essential and extremely important for a library to remain accessible, and that's walkable. And I love that it's on this beautiful park. I think having a public space in front of the library is incredible. Turning it into a private location doesn't seem like it makes much sense for me. No.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, certainly. How do you think the library fits into the downtown development plans?
Well, I think that it's certainly in the way. We're a narrow piece of property between two major blocks. We're right by the train station, and we see buildings going up all around here. So I think that it makes sense that RXR approach the library board. I think that the land is very valuable, and I think that it should stay here. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Of course.
So to answer that question, it's incorporated and then it's not incorporated. It's incorporated in a sense that, as Whitney stated in her introduction, it was a platform, a base where any new resident that's coming to live in our community is going to use as a central hub to get information, to get resources, to connect with community members. When I attend a Saturday program here with my daughter, who's now, today, she's 10 months. She was baptized yesterday. We meet people that are living around the whole development, new parents, new families that are here, and it's fantastic. So we are centrally located in a positive way. However, when the whole conversation with the whole master plan, I think a lot of us and community members, we saw smoke. We did not think to think that the developers would come and approach the library and ask to have some kind of developmental proposal. And as we look at our community growing, we are a pivotal part of our community, and it's not fair for the library to go through so much strain in everything that's going on.
Thank you. For the next question, we're going to begin with you, Mr. Jacobs, after I read it, of course. What should be the balance between buying new hard copy books and buying new technology to meet the needs of future library patrons?
Well, I'm kind of an old hard copy kind of guy. But I realize that and acknowledge reluctantly that many people just don't experience books that way anymore. They prefer to use a reading device like a Kindle, and our library has adapted to that as well. I'm glad to see that in our present budget, the one that we will be voting on, that we've increased the allocation for materials acquisition by $50,000 over previous budgets, which sometimes we've had to scrimp in order to meet other expenses. The hard copy has a long time place in this library into the future, and one thing I wish to go into more closely with the librarians is the policy and why how and why our old books are decided to be discarded, and see if that can't be slowed down. We have more. Time's up.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. What should be the balance between buying new hard copy books and buying new technology to meet the needs of future library patrons?
I think that balance has to be achieved based on usage, and we listen to our patrons, and that's why and how we developed the budget that we did. I don't know, I didn't mention that I'm an appointee on the library board currently, so I was not on the budget committee, but I too am very excited about the $50,000 additional allocation for purchasing materials. I think, you know, we have a population that runs the gamut from children to seniors. I think not everybody uses electronic devices. I myself am ambidextrous and enjoy both, but I really do love the feel of paper and the words on that in that format. And I hope that we don't ever give up books, but that we also, you know, keep really strongly attuned to everything happening technologically, and that we stay on track with that. So the balance has to come from what you want, what people want, and what the users want.
I agree with Whitney. We do need to respond to usage. A quarter of our population is Hispanic, and I know that there's going to be an increase in the materials purchased, so we're going to have an e-library of Spanish materials, which is a great addition. That definitely responds to usage and what the community is requesting and needs. As far as balancing technology, I have a 7-month-old, so I can't, imagine not buying those books for children. But certainly as kids get older, they seem to want the ebook. So I think just by looking at what's circulating in the library and what's being taken out as far as ebooks, that the library can respond adequately in that way.
Thank you.
I too am happy about the budget. Most importantly, I do understand that the library has to keep up with the technology in our community. But there are a lot of individuals within our community that cannot afford or have access to a computer or a Chromebook or a laptop. And I do understand that the schools are now incorporating Chromebooks. However, there is a value to having books in a library. That's why we exist. That's why books need to be in a library. So when we offer these opportunities to have books for our children, most importantly, I know the library staff works very hard with the school district to make sure we get a summer reading list and have the books available here. Our goal is to make sure that books are available for our community, both Hispanic, African American, Caucasian, whomever. The most importantly is to have the books here. However, that is attached alongside with technology, improving technology and providing that the resources. So that's my response.
Next.
You repeat the question one more time.
Certainly. What should be the balance between buying new hard copy books and buying new technology to meet the needs of future library patrons?
Right. I think the basis should be obviously data-driven. So I think we should look at the data of what's currently happening and obviously project out based on the development that's coming aboard. I know for my kids, they're using Chromebook. I haven't seen a textbook in a while. My daughter's in a couple of AP classes. They use textbooks. For the other kids, they're really on Chromebook. And I think that the underserved groups that have to use Chromebook have to find a resource in order to get their homework done, to do research. And so I think those resources should be at the library. So I think that the split should be data-driven based on the information and facts. And if that means 70-30, 70 tech and 30 hard copy, it's based on what the numbers tell you. So that's.
Okay, thank you. I have but one more question here before we go on to closing, which I have the authority to exceed, that is to say, stretch out from 60 minutes for 60 seconds to 90, which I might do. But I just want to ask if there are any other questions to follow my one last question in this packet. There is a question. Okay, someone from the league is going to pick that one up just to see whether it's has been repetitious or otherwise. Okay, you're all right, but thank you very much, John. Okay, so we've got two questions then. The first one, and we're now going to begin again with you, Ms. Bonet. How are you going to vote for the library budget and why? 60 seconds.
I support the library budget. I think it was a budget that focused on salary increases for our very, very hardworking staff who have not received a raise in 2 years, a raise of 0%. This is a modest increase, and that's the bulk of the increase. And the other elements are materials usage, and most of this budget is actually non-discretionary, so it's like health insurance increases, salary increases, and this is all negotiated through the union contract. It amounts to $1 and change per month of increase from what you paid last year, and I'm hoping that, I know that's, doesn't sound like a lot to hopefully most people, but there are people that may prove to be a hardship. I absolutely support the library. I think this is a lean operation, and this will go a long way in expanding programs, supporting current programs, and really giving the staff what they deserve in terms of increases.
Thank you.
I will vote yes for the library budget. It's a very modest increase. As Whitney mentioned, it's just a little more than $1 a month compared to last year. Also, it's only 1 penny for every tax dollar paid. So it's very modest, and the salary increase, I think, is very well deserved. The librarians here do so much. They wear a lot of hats, and they're always so pleasant. So I really appreciate that. And as far as materials, that was based on usage, so I think that was pretty modest as well, only about $50,000 up from last year. And another thing that was particularly great to hear was that a little bit of that increase is going towards programming geared towards teens, which I think, considering the recent high school violence, that's a great addition to try to get teens into the library and programming, keep them in a safe space after school hours.
I am voting yes for the budget as we did on our last trustee meeting. Reason for that is what everyone stated here is a very modest budget, and most importantly, as we have been talking about it, our materials line will be increasing, and our programming for our youth and individuals of our community is important. And like I said earlier in my statement, we are a social service hub, and if we can provide as many services that are free to the community, it's a plus. It's a plus for me to definitely say yes to this budget.
I would vote yes to the budget, but mainly for the fact that this is the most efficient library in Westchester County. And so, the ability to operate any, venture structure efficiently is always when you need to give someone a pat on the back and encourage the work that they're doing. So the raises are saying you're doing a great job. Some of them mandated, but the efficiency is what should be applauded to the work that the trustees have done, as well as to the workers that work here and the executive director. I think we'll vote yes once again, but mainly for the efficiency that they've operated, this building with. You're not seeing your tax dollars wasted.
Thank you.
I will also vote yes for the library budget. I know how hard the people on this board work, and how competent and intelligent they are, and how careful they are about presenting a reasonable budget year after year. And if you want to see the numbers on how efficient we are with that money, the Westchester Library System has statistics on expenditures per capita and so forth. They'll show you should be very happy with the way New Rochelle has done what New Rochelle has done with its money. And I would like to emphasize that when we say we'll vote yes for the budget, that we don't get any of it. We serve for free. I don't know if everybody realizes that.
Thank you all. So here's the seventh question. With due respect, I edited just ever so slightly from the audience. And we're going to be beginning with number 2, speaker number 2, yes. Assuming you were on the library board when this issue came up in the future, would you ever consider selling either the library building or the land on which it is situated?
No, I would not sell the land. I don't think that that's ever a good idea. They're not making any more land, and we are in a prime location here. So I don't think that it would be prudent to sell the land or the building. I think it should remain where it is. A lot of people depend on the walkability of the library, and it's in the perfect location now, so no to selling.
Yes, thank you.
To answer that question, no. I think that the library and the land should stay where it is and for the community. If you really look at the whole aspect and the way things are planned out, the park is owned by the county. we own the library, and the lot is owned by the city. And that lot is already under view, I would assume, to be incorporated in some type of way. So we have to stand our ground. We have to protect our library, which has won historic, an award for its architectural back in the 1970s or 1980s, if I'm not mistaken. 1979. So we have to keep it that way. However, we have to look of how we can find aspects into improving our library, bringing new technology, and where we can make space to expand our programming for the influx of residents that we're going to have in our community.
Thank you.
So I would not sell the land. I think that, while it's a good question, I think it is, from my professional experience, in a vacuum. I think that we all agree, everyone from every meeting we went to, is there needs to be a discovery. I think the discovery and the information is extremely valuable. I think Whitney said that consistently. I think not having information doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help us serve you. It doesn't help us provide the best situation for the library and for the people that it serves. I would not sell the land, but I do think that not having valuable information and being aware of what's happening in your community and how much the value is not prudent either. So I think you should look into what the value of what we have, and there are probably a million different ways that we can use the value of this library outside of selling it. It's just, I think you have to be very critical. Thank you.
I would never sell the land of the library. The selling of the building would have to be for an offer that would probably be never tendered. The whole question of this selling the building to RXR or any developer has always seemed to me pretty improbable as far as coming about, because we would want a lot more than any developer would want to pay. But it is part of our duty as, our financial duty as public servants, to find out what that value would be and to do due diligence in this whole process. And that is why these talks are ongoing, which haven't progressed very far at all, I'd have to emphasize.
Thank you.
I think that this location is an essential location for a public good like the library. I would not want to sell the land, just to be very clear. I think that preserving this location amidst everything else that's happening is symbolic of ensuring the current population that you have a place here and that it's right at the heart of New Rochelle, that the heart of New Rochelle is something that we care deeply about, that we want to preserve, and that while things are shifting, I don't want to put my head in the sand and pretend things aren't changing and dig my heels in. I believe in, the answer is no, I don't want to sell the land. Thank you.
We will now proceed to the closing statements in the reverse order, so we're going to begin with you, Mr. Jacobs, just a moment. We'll make it 60 seconds, but I promise not to cut anybody off if the timekeeper puts his stop, and I'll give you up to another 15 seconds to just wrap up or finish what you wanted to say. So if you'll begin, please.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Again, I've served 2 full terms here as the Board of Trustees, and I would love to extend that. I don't have a thing to say against the other candidates, but you might want to vote for me just as a reward for coming to all these meetings, which I promise you are not as entertaining as this one. So just for my previous service, you might want to consider my name above the others, and promise of more diligent service I think I've managed to render. Thank you very much for watching, listening, attending, and for holding this event.
Thank you.
Well, I think bringing other capabilities to bear to service the community is why I think I would garner the vote of the public. Completely understand that I've been in not-for-profit world for quite a while, just on the charity side, serving in a couple of different ways, Boy Scouts, fraternity, Westchester Clubman in New Rochelle. And so I've serviced a large part of my life, and this is just another step, and using those experiences that I previously stated to bear for the community to benefit. So look forward to hearing or getting your vote.
Thank you.
So to close, I want to thank all of you for coming, because you guys are spending your day here listening to all of us. But most importantly, I would like to add that my experience in being, and why I'm asking for your vote on May 15th is because I am a member of this community, born and raised. I grew up here, my wife grew up here, and my daughter is growing up here. My goal is to make sure that I'm providing the best community possible for my daughter, because I want her to go through the school system, through the library, and that's most important to me. So if this is a position, opportunity for me to do that and make change in my community for my family and for the rest of the community, this is where I would like to be. Most importantly, voting is how we participate in a civic society, be it president or whomever, or local or municipality elections. It's the way we teach our children and our community how to be citizens, and the importance to a voice. I hope you will vote for me to be your voice for our library and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. This forum is the perfect opportunity for us to really talk about ourselves, and the fact that this is at the library, it just shows how you can come here and get information, and I think that that's really important. I really believe in our library. I grew up coming here, and I think that I have a fresh perspective. I have 2 young children, so we attend the children's programs, and that's really where my focus has been, but I've enjoyed getting out in the community and meeting so many people and hearing the different perspectives, and I feel that I have so much information now from community members that I can really add more to what the library is about.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for hosting us. This has been a wonderful event. Apart from loving this library and libraries in general, I feel like my background is a really great fit for the requirements of serving as a trustee and as an effective trustee. Faced with everything that's happening right now with respect to RXR, I wouldn't characterize myself as pro or anti-development, but I believe strongly in thoughtful progress. I believe in facing what's coming and ensuring that we are all a part of it, that we have a say in what happens. And I believe in community and public engagement every step of the way with residents and other stakeholders. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve for the last 4 months as an appointee to the Board of Trustees, and I truly hope that I will have the honor and privilege to continue to serve. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Those are the 2 words that I've been using all night, and you've been using them also all evening. But I mean it very sincerely, and I hadn't intended to say that. It's not in my script. What is in my script is this. That brings our 2018 Library Board Candidates Forum to a close. Thank you, candidates who appeared on the stage for a lively discussion of the issues that will face New Rochelle voters next Tuesday, May 15, when the polls are open between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. There are several polling places in this city of New Rochelle, so be sure to check your particular location. And remember that in addition to the candidates, there is also a library budget to be voted on. Thank you, members of the New Rochelle League of Women Voters, for sponsoring this debate. Thank you, audience members, for your presence, and also those who are watching at home for your interest. And now, whether you're here in the audience or you're at home watching, please join me in giving all the candidates a healthy round of applause for their respectful answers, their being so well-informed and being here and taking on this responsibility.